Hey everyone, Andrew here, and it's time for another JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Today we'll be looking at the fourth arc of the series, Diamond is Unbreakable. Easily the most controversial of the entire JoJo franchise. There are some people that truly love this arc, and there's some people that despise it with a passion. And I definitely fall under one of those categories. It is definitely a different flavor of pretty much any of the other JoJo's for the most part, at least until you get to like part 8 or part 9. But like the first 3 of this and even the 5th one after this one are all very much adventure stories. We're going out on a quest to stop these villains, to do this, that, and the other, traveling around the world, figuring things out. And then you had this one here, which is more like a more insane version of Twin Peaks, where it's just you're in this Japanese town and there's a bunch of these weirdos with these really weird abilities. But let's get a little bit into the plot. Now, I'm going to apologize now. I really wish I could describe this plot in a way that worked really well and succinct it extremely well, but I can tell you right now that that's probably not going to be the case, because this plot is super convoluted and confusing and complicated, and there's a bunch of characters, some of which are very important, some of which are not important at all, and some of which become important but don't really need to be talked about at all. So yeah, let's get a little bit into JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Diamond is Unbreakable. This takes place in 1999, 12 years after the death of Dio and the events of Stardust Crusaders. Jotaro Kujo has now traveled into the Japanese town of Morioh. He is there looking into something about his grandfather, Joseph Joestar. In his list of beneficiaries, he listed someone that nobody knew the name of and couldn't recognize, and Joseph reveals to Jotaro that he had an illegitimate son with one of his former secretaries, who got pregnant and left the company and never really told him she was pregnant, and he only found out about the child later on. Jotaro is going to basically confirm that this son exists to, figure out the will and what's going to go on with that. Joseph's still alive, but he's definitely getting up there in age. Jotaro travels into the town, and he ends up running into this young freshman high schooler named Koichi Hiroshi. And the two of them, he ends up showing Kyoichi around, and they end up stumbling into this fight between a bunch of high schoolers, and the winner of this fight is this guy named Josuke Higashikata, who happens to be the person that Jotaro is looking for. Now, Josuke is thin, very wiry, very tough kid to an extent, but has a very big heart of gold. He also is rocking a very big, solid pompadour. And anytime that somebody insults his hair, he basically snaps and beats the ever-living crap out of them. So Jotaro explains to him, who he is, and he noticed something with Josuke during the fight, that Josuke had a stand with him, and basically we find out that Josuke's stand is known as Crazy Diamond, and that he has the enhanced strength, enhanced speed. He has very similar movements to Jotaro's Star Platinum, but he has this special ability that allows him to manipulate matter, and allows it to be basically to break down matter into its elements and then refuse them back together, or to repair them if they are already broken. It's really, really kind of hard to explain in a way. Jotaro ends up saying something about Josuke's pompadour, which causes Josuke to go off and starts to get into a fight with Jotaro.
Cackle like hens about his hair on your own time.
This guy has no idea the beast he's just released. Why'd he talk about his hair that way?
Which I find it funny that Jotaro is making fun of Josuke's hair, considering Jotaro's hair looks like it's fused to his hat. Whereas the pompadour, while granted not quite as popular in the 1990s as it was in like the 1980s in Japan, was still a big deal even in that time. Like, if you go through, like, pictures of Japan high school kids, all of them were rocking pompadours, like, so many of them. Josuke almost wins the fight, but Jotaro manages to get the advantage by using his ability to stop time, which is not as strong as it was when he fought Dio, where he got it up to about 7 seconds. He can only use it for about 2 or 3 seconds now. Basically, Jotaro then reveals to Josuke that there is an escaped inmate in the town by the name of Angelo, who is going after Josuke's family because Josuke's grandfather sent him into prison. And that the number of stands in this town of Morioh has ballooned to the point where there's something to be worried about, and Angelo has a stand known as Aqua Necklace. So Angelo is basically has sent in Aqua Necklace into Josuke's house to try and plans to take out the entire Josuke family. He tries to go on the attack Josuke's mother, but Josuke manages to capture the stand and captures it in a bottle. But then Josuke's grandfather accidentally opens the bottle and is killed by the stand. Josuke uses Crazy Diamond's power to heal the wounds, but he is unable to revive his grandfather because he cannot bring something that is dead back to life. He could only heal the surface wounds. Josuke and Jotaro get together to plan out a way to outsmart and defeat Angelo. A couple days later, there's a giant rainstorm and it starts flooding the town, and Angelo uses that time while Josuke's house is getting flooded, to try and attack Josuke. He uses his stand to try and jump into Josuke's mouth to kill him from the inside, but Josuke planned for that and had a rubber glove in there, captures him, pulls it out, finds Angelo, beats up Angelo, breaks this rock beside him, and then starts fusing the two elements of them together. Before Angelo is completely absorbed into the rock, he reveals that he was hit by an arrow, and that is what gave him his stand. And that this arrow once belonged to Dio. And they believe that is where stands came from, is from being hit by this specific arrow and surviving. While telling this, Angelo tries to use a last-ditch effort to escape, but Josuke doesn't allow it, and then he permanently fuses Angelo into this rock, making him into this thing known as Angelo's Rock. Basically, he is now a living, unending consciousness stuck in this stone that is not able to move, react, grow old, or die. It is legitimately one of the worst fates I've ever heard of in any type of show. Like, jeez Louise. And granted, yes, he killed your grandfather. Just, but that is a fate worse than death type of thing. So Jotaro decides that he's going to stick around in town, figure out what's going on, and see how to get the bow and arrow and what's going on with that. Josuke and Koichi decide that they're going to try and help him out with that. So they're traveling around the town, and they end up coming across this abandoned house, where they are confronted by this pair of brothers known as the Nijimura brothers, Keicho and Okuyasu. Keicho has the bow and arrow. He shoots Koichi in the neck with it, and then drags Koichi into the house. Josuke tries to go after them, but Okuyasu gets in the way, and he starts fighting him with his stand known as the Hand. And the Hand has the ability to basically creates a rift through doing this motion, and anything that's caught in that rift, he can close up and use in different ways. So, like, he'll use it to, like, close the distance between him and Josuke within, like, seconds. But he could also, like, if he used it on a human being, like, say he did it down my middle, this part would disappear, and these two parts would fuse together into one part, like this piece never existed. But I would still, die because I'm missing a brain and a lot of blood arteries and things like that. But the Hand also has a lot of disadvantages that Josuke picks up on really quickly. He basically uses gets him to use his power and ends up making it so that a bunch of flower parts end up flying directly into Okuyasu, knocking him down. Josuke breaks into the house to go rescue Koichi. Keicho has the stand ability that allows him to possess toys and metal objects and imbue them with life and give them the ability to hurt people. So he basically is confronted by this army of tanks that fire at Josuke. Josuke manages to duck, but they all end up embedding themselves into Okuyasu. Okuyasu is on the verge of death and before Josuke heals him. Okuyasu, being a honorable man, someone who very believes in, paying a debt and things of that nature, agrees to help Josuke rescue his friend Koichi from his brother. They manage to do that, and then they heal Koichi, and we've discovered that Koichi ends up having a stand, which comes out as this little egg thing. Eventually it evolves into a creature known as Echoes that allows him to manipulate words and sounds, but for now it's just a completely useless egg. Josuke and Keicho end up getting into a fight, and Josuke ends up managing to get the upper hand. We find out that Koichi has been using the bow and arrow to create stands because he's trying to find someone with a stand that's strong enough to be able to kill his father. Basically, his father was a subordinate of Dio and has ended up as this mutated mess that is basically can't react or do anything. But Josuke sees that the father is messing with a piece of paper thing that's all been ripped up, and he uses Crazy Diamond to refuse it together, and it turns out that it's a picture of the father and his two sons, and that there's still something of his father in there. So Josuke offers to find a way to heal Keicho's dad. Keicho agrees and is about to allow it, but another stand comes out of the electrical system named Red Hot Chili Pepper, and he kills Keicho, grabs the bow and arrow, and escapes into the electrical circuits. Josuke is unfortunately not able to revive Keicho in time, but Okuyasu survives and decides that he's going to join Josuke in hunting down and finding out who is the wielder of Red Hot Chili Pepper and getting revenge for his brother. And the show then starts to become a bit fillery at that point, story-wise, as you get introduced to a bunch of different stand users, some of whom are important, some of whom are really not. The ones that are really worth mentioning at all is going to be Rohan Kishibe, who is this famous manga artist who has a stand called Heaven's Door that allows him to basically open up a person and turn them into a book, so that he can then read their memories and their weaknesses and their secrets, but he can also write down commands and things that they have to do. He primarily isn't a bad guy, but he is kind of in that moral gray. Well, sometimes he's an ally, and sometimes he's he starts out a bit more of an antagonist, but he ends up becoming an ally. You have Yukiko Yamagashi, is this high school girl who develops a huge crush on Koichi, and she has a stand called Love Deluxe, which possesses her hair and allows her to grow and manipulate her hair like a whip. And she's amazing. I will definitely be talking more about her at the end of the story. And then you have like Aya Tsuji, who is this beautician who has the ability to change people's appearances using her stand, Cinderella. And she can just basically make you look like anybody and change anything about your aspects about that. And then there's a bunch of them that are just not super important. There's a guy who thinks he's an alien. There's a guy that can manipulate these little things to go collect him coins and things of that nature. Some of them are important, most of them are not. They find out that the stand user of Red Hot Chili Pepper is this guy named Akira Otoshi, and he plans to take out Joseph Joestar as he's arriving in Morioh. Josuke manages to fight him, gets in a fight with him and Red Hot Chili Pepper, who can travel between electrical currents and this, that, and the other. But Josuke manages to catch him inside of a rubber tire, and then pops the tire open and sends Red Hot Chili Pepper out into the ocean, killing him, and then takes out Akira before he's able to take out Joseph. and they manage to get their hands on the bow and arrow and give it to Jotaro. Josuke then is now confronted with his father, who he has never met, and you expect that to have real, stakes or elements to that, or any kind of importance put on that. But nope, it immediately becomes, oh hey Joseph, I just found this invisible baby. She has a stand. We have to take care of this invisible baby. And yeah, so Joseph's basically spends the entire rest of the series taking care of this invisible baby, who they never find the parents for, and Joseph just adopts her, and she becomes a new Joestar. Koichi and Rohan end up traveling through, finding this alleyway that doesn't exist on any map, and they're like, okay, we have to check this out, something weird is going on here. And they stumble into it, and they end up coming across this girl named Remi Shugimoto and her dog Arnold. And she reveals to them that they have entered Ghost Alley, that she was killed 15 years ago by this guy, serial killer, and he has been in Morioh for all these years, killing women and getting away with it. She ushers them out of the alleyway before the ghosts arrive and take them all out and kill them. So the Ghost Alley in this reminds me a lot of Danny the Street from the Doom Patrol series, where it's kind of the semi-conscious street. Like it moves around, it can be wherever it needs to be, and it has intents of its own. This is how they end up finding out about the serial killer, who we come to know as Yoshikage Kira. And Yoshikage Kira is an office worker who has obsession with women's hands, and will go and kill them, cut off their hands, and then carry their hand around with him and talk to it and flirt with it and kiss it. And yeah, it's really gross. It's really, yeah. But he wants to have a really normal everyday life, but also get away with killing women indiscriminately and doing whatever the hell he wants. He has a stand called Killer Queen. And his stand has the ability that if it touches something, it can turn it into a bomb and make it explode. His stand also has two separate modes. There's a physical person-like stand that is close to him and can only work within a certain range. And then there is another version, Red Hot Seeker mode, which is basically, it becomes like a little tank that just goes after people and works completely independent of Kira. And he only can kind of sense it, he doesn't control it, and it can work from basically any distance at all. And Jotaro and Koichi end up running into this little tank version, and they get into a fight with it. Nearly ends up killing Koichi, but his stand, Echoes, manages to evolve to its third perfect form, and it traps it in this space where it can't move. So this forces Kira to actually come out and figure out what's going on and face what's going on. And he ends up attacking and nearly killing Koichi, and gets into a fight with Jotaro. And Jotaro manages to get the upper hand using his time stop thing, and basically handcuffs Kira while Josuke and Okuyasu arrive. Josuke revives Koichi, and then they go to confront Kira, but Kira has used his stand's power to blow off his arm and is on the run. Josuke uses Crazy Diamond to touch Kira's hand and make it so that it will travel back and reform with the body that it's supposed to be attached to. End up going into Aya's beauty parlor, where they find out that Aya has been killed along with a body that is Kira's, but it isn't. They figure out that Aya been forced by Kira to change his identity, and then he killed her and the person whose identity he stole, who now looks like him. And he could be literally anybody, anywhere, and they have no idea of who he is or how to find him. Kira has taken on the role of this man named Kosaku, who is a husband and a father. He is now trying to figure out a way to kill Josuke and the group without really getting involved. So he gets help from his own father, Yoshihira Kira. And he is a ghost that possesses this photograph that is basically a stand that allows him to live as long as he's in this photograph. And he has another version of the bow and arrow that he basically travels around the town shooting people with the bow and arrow to create more stands to fight against all of them. Kira's fake son, Hayato, suspects that something is weird and wrong with his father, and he ends up figuring out that his father is not his father, that he is Kira, and Kira uses his power, and Kira ends up killing the kid, and this causes him to panic and freak out before his father shoots him with the arrow. And him getting shot with the arrow a second time causes Killer Queen to evolve and gain a new ability called Bites the Dust. This ability allows Kira to rewind time by an hour, and he uses that ability to rewind time, find Hayata, and he implants a bomb inside Hayata that will explode if he ever tries to reveal Kira's real identity to anybody. And if that bomb explodes, it will rewind time and give Kira the chance to undo whatever the kid was about to do and prevent it from happening. Hayato, having gone through a couple loops at this point, because it just keeps happening, figures out that he has to get Josuke's help earlier. So he goes and gets Josuke up earlier and makes it so that he overhears Kira revealing who he is. Josuke ends up confronting and fighting with Kira, which Kira ends up canceling the bomb inside Hayate so that he can defend himself against Josuke's attack. So Josuke and Kira end up fighting all around the town and getting help from different people, and different people dying in different attacks and all this stuff. Like, Kira ends up getting help from this stand that is a cat fused with a plant. So basically it gets to the point where Kira is like, okay, I don't have much choice. I need to put Bites the Dust into somebody and activate the bomb to give me a chance to reset and get out of this fight. Jotaro and Koichi manage to get ahead of him, or knock him over, and he ends up falling into the path of the arriving ambulance, and he gets run over by the car, and his skull gets crushed. Kira becomes a ghost, and he ends up standing in front of Ghost Alley, where he is confronted by Raimi and her dog. And she and the ghost welcome him by dragging his soul down the alley into eternal torment and suffering at the hands of those that he helped kill all those years. And that's how the arc kind of ends. My God, was that a hard thing to summarize? Like, jeez Louise. And I'm giving you the bare bones, and I skipped a lot, and I apologize. But my God, was this a hard thing to summarize in any way, shape, or form? Like, it's like it is literally like trying to describe all of the insanity of Twin Peaks mixed with all of the insanity of a film like Enter the Void or any of those acid trip films that make no sense. Like, this series is nuts, and it's also boring. It's so weird. It's like, because it has some really great ideas, really great concepts. It's very twisted. It's very weird. Everyone's powers are super weird and convoluted and hard to follow. I didn't even really do a good job of explaining how Crazy Diamond worked, because I don't really understand how his powers work. It's like he has the ability to restore objects and rearrange their structure, but he also can heal things, he can erase documents, he can revert complex structures to the raw elements. But then every time he fights, his main attack is just doing the Jojo, Star Platinum or fight punch thing. And it's like, how does that match with the... And even like the show acknowledges that his power is kind of weird, because they're like, wait, every time you hit something, it reverts. So how in the world can you beat anything through punching it? Wouldn't it just heal? And he responds, oh, I beat you up so quickly that my power has no time to ever kick in and heal you. And it's like, okay. And that's the thing with this series, is like, it's very insane. Everyone is weird. Everyone has weird powers. They're all odd, but not a lot really happens for most of it. Like, it's a lot of just standing around and dealing with a new person with a new weird power. And it's very slow. And it takes so long to get to the fights. All of the fights are won through, like, really stupid bullshit. Like, him swallowing the glove to catch the Aqua one was just like, really? Are you... And the art style is great, and a lot of the characters are really great. Like, legitimately, this has my favorite character in all of JoJo, Yukiko Yamagashi, the beautiful high school student that was in love with Koichi that had her hair as her stand. Like, she's amazing. Like, she's so crazy and so fun. Like, she believes Koichi to be this perfect person, so she's like, I want you to be my mate, I'm going to make you the perfect guy, I'm going to do everything in my power. So she literally kidnaps him and tries to torture him into being perfect for her, and then he beats her and gets away, and then she just starts to actually fall in love with him, and they actually develop a relationship, and it's this weird, like, obsession where you're like, I'm not entirely sure if he likes her or what. It's so... She's amazing. She's legitimately my favorite character in the entire series. Like, she is so cool and so weird and so fun. But I think what this boils down to is really how well you deal with all of the insanity in the story, but also your thoughts on the main villain. And I know people that love Kira. They think he's the best villain in the entire series. They think he's one of the best in all time. They like the fact that he's this, deranged psychopath that doesn't want to fight and doesn't want to get involved. And I actually sat and I've listened to people talk about it and every time they do, and I just listen and I just go, but he sucks. Like, I'm sorry, I hate Kira. I hate him with a passion. Like, I despise Kira. He is the worst. Because here's what Kira is to me. Yoshigaki Kira is a guy who constantly talks about how great he is, and how powerful he is, and how unstoppable he is, and how he deserves everything that in the world, and no one can stand a chance against him. But then he actively avoids fights. He has a stand that doesn't require him to actually be involved in the fights pretty much at all. Anytime he's actually drawn into a fight, he gets his ass handed to him easily, and then manages to barely escape, but then runs away screaming about how he's still unbeatable and how he's the best. Like, he is that drunk guy that you meet at a 7-Eleven who constantly wants to start fights with everybody, but then gets knocked out in a single punch. But then will be there the next day doing the same thing. He is for me the same thing as Charlize Theron's character in Fate of the Furious, Cypher. Is a character who talks and talks and talks and talks, but never ever comes off threatening in any way, shape, or form. Like, he should be scary. Like, his powers and how dangerous he is and how extreme he's willing to go with things should be interesting. They're not to me. They are annoying. I'm like, just shut up and die. I kept waiting for him to be taken out as quickly as, Akira and Angelo, and then they would bring in somebody better for the next part of the arc. And then, no, he just kept coming back again and again and again. And it's just like, ugh, go away, I hate you. Kira literally doesn't do anything. His father does more work and is more of a threat than he is. He constantly keeps getting bullshit upgrades. Like, his stand has 3 different types of bombs. It has a plane bomb, it has a heat-seeking bomb, and it has the time loop bomb. It's like, and I get that, he got the time loop bomb from being hit by the second arrow. And especially considering I know what happens in the next arc, and what happens to someone who gets hit with a second arrow in that arc. This is so, frustrating. Not only do I think he's the worst JoJo villain I've come across, I think he's the worst villain in most anime. Like I cannot stand him in the slightest. And it's a shame because he drags the entire series down for me. Like without him, I would have said this was boring but fine. I liked elements of it. The art style is great. Some of the side characters are really great. Like the only other thing I could really complain about aside from Kira is the fact that the main character is not that interesting. Yeah, Josuke is very kind of bland. The only thing interesting about him is his haircut. And the fact that anyone making fun of his haircut makes him go crazy and he goes and beats them up. But he only does that a couple times in the entire arc. And they even explain like where his haircut came from, like that when he was a kid, his mom's car got stalled, and this guy with a pompadour came and pushed their car and got them, saved them, and he admired that person. And I was expecting something of importance to come from that revelation, like that it was Joseph or it was a young Jotaro, but or even like I was honestly really expecting it to be a Josuke, like a time travel thing, like he went back and saved his own family, and that's where he got the hairstyle was from his future self. But they never did that. They never did anything with it. It was just a story that is in like the first episode to explain his hair, and then they never did anything with it. It's really sad because all the characters around him are great. I like Koichi. I like Okuyasu. Having Jotaro back was great. Rohan was at least kind of interesting. Josuke was just kind of meh. Like I said, this is the most controversial series. Some people really like it. Some really hate it. I'm lean more on the hate side, only because of Kira. If the villain had been a little better done, a little more interesting, and not been such a whiny, a boring, coward jackass, I would give this series a decent pass. Because there is stuff in there that works really good, and the animation is actually really nice. I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you get where you're coming from. This, for me, is the worst JoJo arc that I've come across. I haven't read all of them. I've read the next arc, and I've seen enough of the arc after that I'm like, yeah, those are probably better than this. I have no idea if, seasons 7 and 8 are worse than this. I have a hard time believing that. Because, my God, Kira just drags this down into the point that I don't ever really want to watch this or read this again. Going through it once with Kira was enough. I never want to see that character again. That just made this entire thing unwatchable for me. But here's how impressive, and good these were. This is one of the only of the seasons of JoJo that got its own spin-off. Rohan got his own spin-off little series, which I haven't seen. I don't know if it's any good or not, but I thought that was kind of interesting and impressive. But it's also a character where I was kind of I don't really know if I super care about a spin-off with him. I can't say I don't recommend it, because a lot of people really do like it. It is one, though, that I can say I would recommend skipping through chunks of it. Maybe just fast forward anytime Kira's on screen, because he is just the worst. But that is just my opinion. What do you all think? Do you like this season? Do you hate this season? Am I completely wrong and Kira's amazing and one of the best characters in all of anime? Let me know in the comments below. Happy watching, happy reading. I will see you all guys at a later time soon, because, after this we're going to go on to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Golden Wind. Happy watching. Bye.